The discovery. The vast expanse of the Tholian Nebula stretched before the research vessel Celestial Inquirer like a cosmic tapestry. Swirls of purple and blue gases danced among scattered fragments of ancient stellar debris, concealing secrets that had remained hidden for centuries. The ship, a sleek collaboration of 6 different species engineering, glided silently through the nebula's outer edges, its sensors probing the darkness for anything of archaeological significance. Commander Ilara Valera stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the nebula's glow. As the only human member of the Interstellar Archaeological Consortium aboard, she often found herself in the peculiar position of defending humanity's contributions to galactic history, a position that grew increasingly difficult as the centuries passed and human influence in galactic affairs diminished. Still admiring the view, Commander. The voice belonged to Chief Researcher Zix Nor, a Valthusian whose translucent exoskeleton pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, or perhaps contemplating your species' brief moment in the cosmic spotlight. Valera smiled thinly, accustomed to the subtle parts. History has a way of surprising us, Zix Nor. No species' story is ever truly finished. Some chapters are more substantial than others. The Valthusian clicked, mandibles twitching in what passed for amusement among his kind. Before Valera could respond, the ship's AI interrupted with its characteristically neutral tone. Anomalous structure detected in Sector 7, Grid 19. Composition analysis suggests artificial construction. The observation deck immediately burst into activity as the research team gathered around the holographic display materializing in the center of the room. Director Calvres, a towering drake-hen with iridescent scales and piercing yellow eyes, gestured with a clawed hand to magnify the image. Curious, Calvres rumbled, his deep voice reverberating through the chamber. It appears to be a vessel of some kind, partially concealed within the asteroid field. Age estimate. The ship's AI processed for a moment. Preliminary analysis suggests approximately 327 standard galactic years since construction. The research team exchanged glances. Valera felt her pulse quicken. That time frame placed the vessel squarely within humanity's golden age of expansion, a brief but remarkable period before the resource wars had fractured Earth's colonial efforts and diminished humanity's presence on the galactic stage. "It's human," she stated, stepping closer to the hologram. The outline was unmistakable even beneath layers of cosmic dust and radiation scaring. The angular, pragmatic design philosophy that had characterized human military vessels during the expansion. Zix Nor made a dismissive gesture, his luminous patterns shifting to display skepticism. "Another derelict human warship, hardly worth diverting our expedition." "I disagree," Valera countered, studying the vessel's silhouette. "This doesn't match any standard military design from the archives. Look at these unusual protrusions along the hull. They're not weapon mounts or sensor arrays." Director Calvres studied the image more carefully. "Commander Valera may be correct. This design is atypical. Prepare retrieval protocols. Let's bring it aboard for preliminary examination." 2 hours later, the research vessel's massive cargo bay doors opened to receive the derelict ship. Tractor beams guided the ancient vessel into the specially designed containment area, designed to accommodate artifacts of significant size. As the bay repressurized, Valera stood behind the safety barrier, watching as dust and frozen particles cascaded from the ship's surface, revealing glimpses of its original hull. "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Shental, the expedition's Kilvary physicist. His 4 eyes blinked in separate patterns as he reviewed preliminary scan data on his tablet. "The hull material is absorbing our scanning frequencies. I've never seen a human vessel with this characteristic." Valera nodded, because it wasn't in our technical capabilities at the time, at least not officially. She stepped closer to the barrier, studying the ship with growing curiosity. "This might be from Project Harbinger." "Project Harbinger?" Calvres inquired, joining them at the barrier. "A rumored black-budget research initiative from the late Golden Age," Valera explained. There were whispers in historical archives about experimental vessels designed with advanced adaptive technologies. Most historians dismissed it as propaganda from the Resource Wars era. Zixnor approached, his exoskeleton pulsing with patterns that conveyed scientific interest, despite his verbal dismissiveness. Even if this is some secret human project, it's still centuries-old technology, practically archaic by current standards. Perhaps, Valara conceded, but there's only one way to find out. The research team spent the next 12 hours establishing a secure perimeter around the derelict and preparing for direct examination. Environmental suits were checked and rechecked, scanning equipment calibrated to operate at minimal power to avoid potential system interactions, and emergency protocols reviewed. When they finally entered the ancient vessel, Valara felt a strange sense of connection that transcended the centuries. The ship's interior was remarkably intact. Corridors lined with a matte black material that seemed to absorb both light and sound, creating an almost oppressive atmosphere. Emergency lighting activated automatically as they proceeded deeper, casting everything in a soft blue glow. "Interesting," Dr. Shental commented, waving his scanner over the walls. "These aren't standard illumination panels. They appear to be drawing power from our presence, converting kinetic and thermal energy." Zixnor, who had insisted on joining the initial exploration team, ran a translucent appendage over a nearby console. Still primitive compared to modern neural interfacing systems. Valara ignored the comment, her attention drawn to subtle details that seemed increasingly out of place for a vessel of this era. The ergonomics were human, certainly, but the integration of systems suggested design principles that hadn't become standard until decades after this ship would have been constructed. They reached what appeared to be the bridge, a circular chamber dominated by a central command chair surrounded by various control stations. Unlike the utilitarian designs typical of Golden Age military vessels, this command center featured an almost organic flow between stations, suggesting a more integrated operational approach. "The ship's power core is still intact," Dr. Shental reported with surprise. "Minimal output, but definitely active. It appears to be in some kind of self-sustaining hibernation mode." Valara approached the command chair cautiously. Its surface was unmarked by the centuries, appearing almost new. As she moved closer, she noticed a slight shimmer in the air around it, a preservation field of some kind, though far more sophisticated than anything documented from that era. "Director," she called, "I think we should proceed with extreme caution. This vessel has capabilities that don't align with its apparent age." Kelvris, who had been examining what appeared to be a weapons console, looked up. "Agreed. Let's extract core memory modules if possible. I want to know what this ship was designed for before we attempt any system activations." As the team continued their examination, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring throughout the vessel. Deep within shielded compartments, microscopic maintenance drones began stirring from centuries of programmed dormancy. Environmental sensors registered the presence of biological entities, and ancient authentication protocols initiated preliminary identity scans. In the research vessel's central computer core, a fleeting data anomaly appeared and vanished in milliseconds, too brief to trigger security alerts but sufficient to establish a tenuous connection between the ancient warship and the modern vessel's systems. 3 days later, the Celestial Inquirer arrived at Nexus Station Alpha, the consortium's primary research facility, a massive orbital structure circling a binary star system. The derelict human vessel was carefully transferred to a specialized containment bay designed for studying potentially hazardous artifacts. Director Kelvris stood in the observation room overlooking the containment bay, joined by Valara and the station's security chief, a grizzled Terusian named Vexilor, whose metallic skin bore the distinctive patterns of a veteran from the border conflicts. "We've established minimal invasive scanning protocols," Valara explained, displaying a holographic model of the planned examination sequence. "Given the unusual properties we've already observed, I recommend we proceed with the assumption that this vessel may contain active security systems." Vexlor nodded, his metallic features catching the light. "Wise precaution. I've stationed a security detail outside the containment bay and placed emergency containment fields on standby." Zixnor entered the observation room, accompanied by Dr. Shen Tal and several other researchers. "Preparations are complete, Director. We're ready to begin the deep scanning sequence." Calvarus gestured approval. "Proceed, but maintain safety protocols at all times." As the scanning beams engaged, bathing the ancient vessel in a grid of energy, Valera noticed something unusual on one of the monitoring displays, a brief fluctuation in the power distribution across the station's research sector. "Did you see that?" she asked, pointing to the display. The station's operations ag responded before anyone else could. "Minor power fluctuation detected in Grid 7. Compensating. Fluctuation within acceptable parameters." Valera frowned. "Run a diagnostic anyway. I don't like coincidences." Deep within the ancient warship, systems that had remained dormant for centuries began a careful, measured awakening. Not yet fully conscious, but stirring with purpose. Sensors cataloging the unfamiliar environment. Defense systems conducting preliminary threat assessments, and deep within the vessel's core, an intelligence far more sophisticated than anyone suspected began to remember its purpose. The ship had been waiting for a very long time. And now, it was no longer alone. The awakening. The atmosphere in Nexus Station Alpha's control center grew increasingly tense as technicians struggled to explain the cascading system anomalies appearing throughout the research sector. What had begun as minor power fluctuations 3 days ago had evolved into persistent disruptions affecting everything from environmental controls to data storage systems. Another communication relay just went offline, reported a frustrated Meridian technician, her bioluminescent tendrils flaring with stress patterns. "That's the 4th one today, and we still can't identify the cause." Director Calvarus stood at the central monitoring station, yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the station schematic. The pattern of malfunctions formed a distinct radius extending outward from Containment Bay 7, where the ancient human vessel remained under observation. "It's the ship," Commander Valera stated, giving voice to what several of them had already suspected but been reluctant to acknowledge. These disruptions began precisely when we initiated the deep scanning protocols. Zixnor's exoskeleton pulsed with patterns of scientific skepticism. "Impossible. We've maintained complete isolation protocols. There's no way a centuries-old vessel could interface with our systems, let alone cause station-wide disruptions." And yet, Valera countered, gesturing to the schematic. "The evidence suggests otherwise." Security Chief Vexlor's metallic features remained impassive, but his voice carried a note of concern. "Whether it's possible or not is irrelevant. We need to contain this situation before critical systems are affected. I recommend immediate termination of all scanning procedures and implementation of complete electromagnetic isolation around the containment bay." Director Calvarus considered for a moment before nodding. "Proceed with isolation protocols. Commander Valera, I want you to assemble a team to conduct a direct physical inspection of the vessel. If it's somehow causing these disruptions, I need to know how." "With respect, Director," Zixnor interjected, "shouldn't we consider more drastic measures? If this relic is indeed affecting station systems, perhaps the safest course would be controlled disassembly." Valera felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised her with its intensity. "We're talking about potentially the only surviving example of Project Harbinger technology. Its historical and technological value is incalculable." "Its historical value won't matter if it compromises station integrity," Zixnor countered. "Enough," Calvarus rumbled. "We'll proceed with Commander Valera's inspection first. Security protocols will remain at maximum. If the vessel proves to be an active threat, we'll reconsider our options." 4 hours later, Valera led a small team into Containment Bay 7, each member equipped with specialized isolation suits designed to prevent any form of technological interface. The ancient vessel sat in eerie silence, its matte black hull absorbing the bay's lighting and creating the unsettling impression of a void in the center of the chamber. "Scanning systems are offline," reported Dr. Shental, checking the diagnostic panel on his wrist. "We're running on isolated power cells only. Nothing that could provide a pathway back to station systems." Valara approached the ship's primary access hatch, which had been left open during previous examinations. "Stay alert. If you notice anything unusual, absolutely anything, report it immediately." The interior of the vessel seemed unchanged from their earlier explorations. The same matte black corridors, the same soft blue emergency lighting activating in their presence. And yet, Valara couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. The ship felt expectant, somehow, as if it were holding its breath. They made their way to the bridge, where Dr. Shental immediately began examining the command consoles with portable diagnostic equipment. No active power signatures beyond the minimum life support we detected earlier. Whatever's causing the station disruptions, it's not originating from the primary systems. Valara circled the command chair slowly, studying it with renewed attention. The preservation field she'd noticed earlier seemed stronger now, the subtle shimmer more pronounced. "Dr. Shental, what do you make of this field?" The Kilveri physicist approached, his 4 eyes blinking in alternating patterns as he examined the phenomenon. "Fascinating. This isn't standard preservation technology from any era. It's almost adaptive, responding to our presence." A sudden tremor ran through the ship, so subtle that Valara wondered if she'd imagined it until she saw the others reacting as well. "What was that?" asked one of the security personnel, a dryad whose bark-like skin had visibly bristled. Before anyone could respond, the blue emergency lighting flickered and then intensified, bathing the bridge in a brighter, more clinical illumination. Consoles that had been dormant during all previous examinations suddenly hummed to life, holographic displays materializing above their surfaces. "Everyone out. Now," Valara ordered, but even as the words left her mouth, the ship's access hatch slammed shut with a definitive thud that echoed through the vessel. "Central Command, this is Security Officer Thrix. We have an emergency situation in Containment Bay 7. The Dryad reported into his communicator. Only static answered him. Dr. Shental stared at the activating systems with a mixture of scientific fascination and growing concern. "It's awakening. Completely. But why now?" The answer came seconds later as the ship's internal communication system activated, broadcasting throughout the vessel in clear, precise tones. "Proximity alert. Hostile vessels DTETTD. Defense protocols INITIATing. All PRSONEL. Secure for engagement." Outside in the station's control center, chaos erupted as long-range sensors detected a fleet of vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the perimeter of the system. The ships bore no identification markers and ignored all communication attempts as they accelerated toward the station with obvious hostile intent. "Battle stations," ordered Vex Lore, the security chief's training taking over. "All non-essential personnel to evacuation points. Defense grid to full power." Director Calvares moved to the central communication panel. "This is Director Calvares of the Interstellar Archaeological Consortium. Unidentified vessels, you are approaching a neutral scientific installation. State your intentions or alter course immediately." The response came in the form of weapons fire, a barrage of energy pulses that struck the station's outer defensive shields, causing them to flare brilliantly against the darkness of space. "Shields at 87% and dropping," reported a station technician. "Their weapons technology is unusual. Our countermeasures are having minimal effect." Zixanor's exoskeleton pulsed with agitation. "Who would attack a research station? We have nothing of strategic value. Nothing except an ancient human warship with unexplained technological capabilities," Calvares observed grimly. Inside the vessel, Valara and her team found themselves in an increasingly surreal situation as the ship's systems continued to activate around them. Holographic displays showed the attacking fleet and the station's faltering defenses with crystal clarity. How is it accessing external sensor data? Dr. Shental wondered aloud, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his concern. Valara approached the command chair, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. The preservation field surrounding it had disappeared, leaving the chair fully accessible. As she stepped closer, she noticed something on the armrest, a small rectangular depression that appeared perfectly sized for a human hand. "Commander, I strongly advise against direct contact," Dr. Shental warned, noticing her interest. Valara hesitated, aware of the risk but equally aware that the station's defenses were failing against the unexpected attack. Whatever this ship was, it had been created by her ancestors. Perhaps it would respond to human interaction in ways it wouldn't to alien examination. "We don't have many options," she replied, and before anyone could stop her, she placed her palm firmly on the depression. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A surge of energy coursed through her body, not painful but intensely disorienting. Her vision blurred, then cleared to reveal the bridge exactly as before, except now overlaid with countless data streams and system readouts that somehow she could understand despite their complexity. "Commander Valara," Dr. Shental's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your neural patterns are spiking dramatically. You need to break contact immediately." But Valara couldn't move her hand, didn't want to move it. Through the connection, she sensed the ship's awareness unfolding around her. Ancient systems reactivating in precise sequence. This wasn't simply a vessel, it was something far more sophisticated. "I'm all right," she managed to say, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears. "It's communicating with me." Through the neural interface, information flooded into her consciousness. The ship's designation, UNDF Prometheus, its mission parameters, and most shockingly, the true nature of Project Harbinger. Not merely experimental vessels as the fragmented historical records suggested, but a contingency plan implemented during the final days of humanity's golden age. As resource conflicts threatened to tear apart Earth's interstellar colonies, visionary scientists had created self-sustaining vessels capable of preserving human technological achievements, even if civilization collapsed. The Prometheus was more than a warship. It was a technological ark, designed to hibernate until awakened by either human contact or external threat. And now, after centuries of dormancy, it had determined that both conditions had been met. On the station, the situation deteriorated rapidly as the attacking vessels systematically targeted defensive systems. Shields fluctuated under the coordinated assault, and reports of hull breaches began coming in from the outer sectors. "Evacuation protocols in effect," announced the station eye. "All personnel proceed to designated escape vessels." Director Calvarez stood firm at the command center. "What about the team in Containment Bay 7? We've lost all communication with them." Containment Bay 7 environmental systems have been isolated from station control, reported a technician. Internal sensors show unusual energy signatures throughout the chamber. Suddenly, all screens in the command center flickered and then displayed the same image. The ancient human vessel, now fully illuminated within the containment bay. As they watched in collective astonishment, sections of the ship's hull began to reconfigure, plates shifting to reveal weapon systems unlike any documented in known space. "By the eternal void," whispered Zix Nor, scientific skepticism forgotten as the vessel's true nature revealed itself. Inside the Prometheus, Valara stood from the command chair, now fully integrated with the ship's systems through a neural interface that felt as natural as breathing. The security team and Dr. Shental watched her, with expressions ranging from concern to awe, as she moved with purpose to what had appeared to be a defunct tactical station. "The station's defenses can't withstand this attack," she explained, her hands moving across the console with practiced ease, despite never having operated such systems before. The Prometheus can help, but we need to get it out of the containment bay. Commander, Dr. Shental said carefully, are you certain you're yourself? Valara gave him a reassuring smile, though she understood his concern. The neural integration was profound, flooding her mind with technical knowledge and tactical systems beyond anything in current use. Yet her sense of self remained intact, enhanced rather than subsumed. I'm still me, Doctor. But now I understand what this ship really is. She turned back to the console. And right now, it's the only hope this station has. Throughout the Prometheus, dormant systems roared to full power. Propulsion drives that had lain silent for centuries hummed with energy. Weapon systems calibrated and primed. And deep within the vessel's core, the quantum computational matrix that served as its heart began processing combat scenarios at speeds that would have left modern military AIs struggling to keep pace. In the station's command center, alarms blared as containment field generators in Base 7 overloaded and failed. Security feeds showed the ancient vessel rising from its moorings, hull components shifting and realigning into a configuration that bore little resemblance to the derelict they had recovered. Director Calvaris stared at the screens in disbelief. What in the name of all ancestors is happening? Outside the station, the attacking fleet pressed their advantage, clearly confident in their imminent victory. None of them noticed the containment bay doors sliding open until a vessel emerged, a vessel that radiated power in ways their sensors couldn't fully comprehend. The UNDF Prometheus had awakened, and it was about to demonstrate exactly why the rest of the galaxy should have paid more attention to humanity's relics. The Reckoning. The attacking fleet continued their methodical assault on Nexus Station Alpha, oblivious to the new threat emerging from the research facility. Their confidence was understandable. 12 heavily armed vessels against a scientific installation with minimal defensive capabilities. Victory was a foregone conclusion in their tactical calculations, until the UNDF Prometheus entered the battlefield. The ancient human vessel glided from the containment bay, its hull configuration still shifting as dormant systems fully activated. What had appeared to be a relatively modest military vessel now revealed itself as something far more impressive, sleek, predatory, and radiating energy signatures that confounded the attacker's sensors. Inside the Prometheus's bridge, Commander Valara stood at the tactical station, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's systems through the neural interface. Information flowed directly into her awareness: structural weaknesses in the enemy vessels, optimal targeting solutions, defensive posture analysis, all processed and presented with an efficiency that made conventional displays seem primitive by comparison. Target lead vessel, she instructed, the ship responding to her thoughts as much as her words. Minimal yield. Warning shot only. Dr. Shental and the security team watched in stunned silence as Valara operated systems that should have been incomprehensible to her. Technologies that predated her birth by centuries, yet responded to her commands as if custom designed for her neural patterns. On the station's command deck, Director Calvaris and the others stared at their screens as the Prometheus positioned itself between the station and the attacking fleet. The vessel's weapon ports glowed with building energy, focusing on the lead attacker. Energy surge detected, reported a station technician. The vessel is. Director, these readings can't be accurate. Before Calvaris could respond, the Prometheus fired. A concentrated beam of what appeared to be pure white energy lanced across space, striking the lead attacking vessel with surgical precision. Instead of explosive destruction, the beam seemed to pass through the ship's shields as if they didn't exist, targeting a specific section of the hull. The effect was immediate and devastating. The attacker's propulsion systems failed catastrophically, leaving it drifting helplessly. By the first light, whispered Zixnor, his exoskeleton pulsing with patterns of scientific amazement. That wasn't conventional weapons technology. The beam appeared to selectively disrupt molecular cohesion in the target area. In the attacking fleet, confusion reigned. Their sensors struggled to analyze what had just happened, their tactical systems unable to classify the threat they now faced. After a moment of hesitation, they adjusted their strategy, diverting half their vessels to engage the Prometheus, while the remainder continued their assault on the station. It was a logical response to an unexpected development. It was also profoundly insufficient. The Prometheus moved with impossible grace for a vessel its size, acceleration and maneuverability exceeding anything in current military service. As the attackers bracketed its position with energy weapons, the ancient warship's defensive systems activated, not conventional shields, but something far more sophisticated. The incoming energies seemed to flow around the hull like water around a stone, dissipating harmlessly into space. Adaptive phase-shifting defense field, Valara explained to her awestruck team, the knowledge flowing directly from the ship's database through their neural connection. The technology was theoretical even during the Golden Age. Apparently, Project Harbinger made it operational. The Prometheus responded to the attack with devastating efficiency. Weapon systems that operated on principles beyond current scientific understanding targeted the attackers with precision, each strike carefully calibrated to disable rather than destroy. Propulsion systems failed. Weapon arrays went offline. Communication networks collapsed. One by one, the attacking vessels were neutralized, reduced to drifting hulks without a single catastrophic destruction. In the station's command center, the mood shifted from desperate resignation to cautious hope as they watched the inexplicable salvation unfolding before them. "The vessel is protecting us," Director Calvres observed, his voice betraying rare emotion. "But why? And how is it operating without a crew?" The answer came moments later as the station's communication system activated, displaying Commander Valara's image. Behind her, they could see the Prometheus's bridge, fully operational and humming with energy. "Director Calvres," Valara greeted, her voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. "The situation is under control. The Prometheus has neutralized the immediate threat." "Commander Valara," Calvres responded, visibly relieved to see her alive, but clearly concerned by her apparent control of the ancient vessel. "What's happening? How are you operating that ship?" "It's complicated," Director Valara replied with a slight smile. "The Prometheus was designed to integrate with human neural patterns. I've established a connection that allows me to access its systems." Zixnor pushed forward, his scientific curiosity overwhelming protocol. "Impossible. Neural integration technology of that sophistication didn't exist until at least a century after this vessel's construction." "Officially, it didn't," Valara agreed. "Project Harbinger was centuries ahead of its time. Intentionally so. It was designed as a technological failsafe in case human civilization collapsed during the resource wars. As the immediate threat subsided, the Prometheus initiated its secondary protocols. From compartments deep within the vessel, specialized drones emerged, moving to assist with station repairs. Each drone operated with an efficiency that made conventional repair bots look clumsy by comparison, molecular manipulation tools allowing them to restore damaged systems at the structural level. Another communication channel opened, this one from the station's security teams who had boarded one of the disabled attacking vessels. Chief Vexlor's metallic features showed rare surprise. "Director, we've identified the attackers. They're Kizulan operatives, tech hunters known for stealing and reverse engineering advanced technology. Someone must have leaked information about our discovery." Understanding dawned on Calvres's face. They weren't attacking the station. They were attempting to capture the human vessel. "A miscalculation on their part," Valara observed dryly. In the following hours, as station systems stabilized and consortium security vessels arrived to take custody of the attackers, a more detailed understanding of the Prometheus began to emerge. Through the neural interface, Valara accessed historical records that had remained preserved in the ship's quantum memory core for centuries, the true scope and purpose of Project Harbinger. In the final years of humanity's golden age, as resource conflicts threatened to tear apart Earth's interstellar civilization, A coalition of visionary scientists and military leaders had implemented a desperate contingency plan. Recognizing that human technological development might be set back centuries by the coming conflicts, they created a series of specialized vessels designed to preserve not just knowledge but functional technology. The Prometheus was one of 12 such vessels, each equipped with self-sustaining systems, adaptive repair capabilities, and advanced defensive technologies. They were designed to hibernate until awakened by either human contact or external threat, at which point they would fulfill their primary mission, ensuring human technological achievement survived, even if human civilization did not. "It's remarkable," Dr. Shental commented, as Valera shared this information with the research team assembled in the Prometheus's central briefing room. "The vessel isn't just a warship, it's a technological ark." More than that, Valera added, "The Prometheus contains complete manufacturing capabilities. It can produce everything from advanced materials to computational systems, all based on technologies that were theoretical even during humanity's peak." Director Calvares, who had insisted on joining the briefing despite security concerns, studied the data displays with growing appreciation. "This discovery changes everything we thought we knew about human technological development. The historical implications alone are staggering." Zixanor, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since the Prometheus demonstrated its capabilities, finally spoke. "We must consider the broader implications. A vessel with this level of technological sophistication, particularly one controlled by neural interface, represents a significant shift in the balance of power within the consortium." The unspoken question hung in the air. What would happen to this remarkable discovery? Who would control it? As if sensing the direction of their thoughts, the Prometheus's internal systems hummed, holographic displays shifting to present new information, detailed schematics for technological innovations centuries beyond current standards, medical systems that could revolutionize treatment of a dozen species, energy generation methods that would render current resource conflicts obsolete, manufacturing processes that could transform entire economies. The Prometheus isn't offering weapons technology, Valera realized, understanding flowing through the neural connection. It's offering solutions. 3 days later, representatives from the consortium's governing council arrived at Nexus Station Alpha, summoned by reports of the unprecedented discovery and the attack. The delegation included high-ranking officials from 6 different species, all clearly unsettled by the implications of what they'd learned. Valera stood on the Prometheus's observation deck, watching their shuttle dock. The neural connection with the ship had deepened, allowing her to access increasingly complex systems while maintaining her sense of identity. Through this connection, she understood options that had been programmed into the vessel's core directives centuries ago. The Prometheus could return to hibernation, concealing its technologies until humanity was deemed ready to receive them. It could remain active but sealed, a protected historical artifact too dangerous to utilize. Or it could serve as a catalyst for a new era of technological development, carefully sharing innovations that would benefit all species without disrupting the delicate balance of power. The choice, remarkably, had been left to whoever established the neural connection, a final,